is Mima. And last program I tried to tell you what things were like in 1910 when my mom and dad got married, and into which I was born in 1934. Today, so I'm going to bring you a glimpse into the next 10 years of my life. My dad had been a sharecropper for the 24 years up until I was born, and when I was 2, he bought a 250-acre farm in Bullock County, and so we moved there when I was 2. And most people that grew up on a farm wouldn't take anything in the world for the experience. But they don't want to give up the everyday conveniences that we enjoy today. And I always said that if I could live in the country and have the conveniences that we had in modern life, I would love to live on the farm. And I got to do that for 26 years of my adult life. But the house that I remember was a clapboard house, and it had a shingle roof, and it's probably what you would call a shotgun house because you could shoot out the front door and it would come out the back door without touching anything in the house. So that was called a shotgun house. We got our water from a pump that was on the back porch, and it was called wash stand, and so there was a basin there, and there was also a pail with a dipper, and we all drank from the same bucket. And of course, we had no plumbing or electricity in that time, and I was 10 years old before we got electricity, and I was in the 4th grade. But we had a real nice outhouse. It was a 2-seater. So we sheltered in place many times looking at the Sears Roebuck catalog. But when I was growing up, I considered ourselves middle-class people because there were people that had more than we did, but there were certainly people that had less than we did. But I guess by today's standards, you'd probably say that we were poor people. But we were not poor in spirit. Ours was a working farm. Daddy had mules, cows, hogs, chickens, eggs, and Daddy grew corn and peanuts and cotton and velvet beans and oats and wheat and sugar cane, in addition to pecan and fruit trees. We had a vegetable garden in spring and one in the fall. And everyone worked, including me. When Daddy needed help in the field, we helped him. And when the fruits and vegetables were ripe, Daddy came and he shelled peas and butter beans and did help Mama get it ready to do the canning. And then, of course, she and I did the canning. But I had regular chores in addition to this from helping Mom, because she believed that an idle mind was the devil's workshop, and she wasn't going to give any place to the devil, so she kept me busy. Now, that's not to say that wasn't a few times that I pretended to be busy when I wasn't, but anyway, that's between me and the Lord. So every day my chores included watering and feeding the chickens, gathering the eggs, bringing in the stove wood, bringing the cows home, helping Mama in the kitchen, washing and drying dishes, sweeping yards on the weekends and burning leaves. And you might think, oh, you poor thing. But you had to work so hard, but you'd be wrong. I enjoyed it most of the time. There were no lawnmowers, and no self-respecting yard had weeds in it. So the grass was hoed up and the yards were swept, because you want to be able to see the snakes if there were any, and you certainly didn't want your yard to grow up with weeds, and if you didn't hoe them out, they'd get 2 or 3 feet tall, so you had to keep them done. But I enjoyed sweeping the yards because I always make fun out of everything just about that I did, and it would look like a woman's wavy hair when I got through with my gall brush broom sweeping one way and then turn around and sweep the other. And of course we had to scrub our floors with a scrub brush, and the scrub brush was made out of corn shucks put into a block of wood that had holes in it. And we scrubbed with lye soap, and whenever you would take that, and you would have to rinse the soap off, so there was holes in the floor that went out underneath the house. And there was my dad took, I guess everybody did, a tin can lid, and they put it over the hole with a nail, so you would close it up with, when you weren't scrubbing the floors and letting the water run out, you would close it back up, and then you wouldn't have any air coming in. But anyway, it was such an awesome time back then. And I can't tell you how much joy and contentment and peace that you can feel on the farm. I had a city friend of mine once said, why in the world would you want to go back? But unless you've lived on a farm, how in the world can anybody describe to you what they experience from the solitude? Going hunting in the woods for violets, swinging from a sapling tree, picking blueberries with my daddy in the woods, picking blackberries along the fence row, Mama making jelly. And I remember as a child that Daddy had sugar cane, but we didn't have a mill, so we had to go to a neighbor's to grind the cane, to make it into juice, to turn it into syrup. And then we would get together, all the kids, we'd play while all this was happening, and the neighbors would come. And then coming home, I remember coming home, one of my favorite memories is coming home on a moonlit night. It's always during a harvest moon, so bright and beautiful. Air is so clean and pure. And coming home in a mule and wagon at that time of night with Mom and Dad. It was just, I just can't explain to you what a joy and contentment that was. And we even walked to the neighbors on a moonlit night, to play Pachisi with them. And that was fun. I mean, we enjoyed it. It was with Mom and Dad on a moonlit night. And many times in the country, I would turn my bed, actually, part of it was in the window. And I always slept with my head to the head of the bed, but on some moonlit nights I would turn and I'd sleep the other way, and then I could look out the window at the moonlight and I could listen to the whippoorwills and the owls. I mean, this is so exciting, and you don't understand that unless you've ever, and it would be cool by this time of the night. Even though we didn't have any air conditioner, you always slept cool in the country because of the night. So it's the sunrises and the sunsets. It's even the air that you breathe. It's the taste of fresh vegetables and fruit. And in other words, all 5 of your senses are heightened to their extreme because of living in the country. Seeing the fireflies and listening to the whippoorwills. But anyway, so it's hard to describe that peace and solitude that you feel. Anyway, those are all things that I remember that growing up as a child. But it would be awesome if everybody could have a mom and dad like I had. And I realize a lot of people don't have that, but divorce was unheard of back then. And my mother was a Christian lady. I mean, not so much by what she said, but by her character and her actions. I've never heard her utter a word of profanity. She could speak sternly to me, but she never raised her voice. And she believed if you couldn't say something good about somebody, just don't say anything at all. And she had the gift of giving. Nobody ever came to our house that they didn't leave with something that she gave them, whether it was a mess of peas or greens or butter or eggs or a jar of jam and jelly. And I wish I was more like her. And my dad was well respected in our community. He was also a Christian and a man of his word, and he certainly had the gift of hospitality. One of his favorite sayings was to anybody that came up around about dinner time, stay and have dinner time with us. We might not have much dinner, but we've got plenty of time. And the insurance man and just about everybody that came they stayed and had dinner with us. But Mama always had enough. He had a gift for gab, and everybody loved his stories. And he liked to laugh, and he enjoyed laughing about his own jokes probably more than anybody else. But he wasn't perfect, but I wouldn't trade him for $1 million. So we went to Emmett Grove Baptist Church. This was where we went, and this is where I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was 10 years old. And we always had, a lot of times we had the preacher for dinner because this is what was expected to do back then. But I always enjoyed it because whenever he came, we always had good food and had good conversation, and I loved to hear him and my dad talk about the scriptures. And so what did I take away from my childhood? These are some of the things that I think that I would like for you to think about what meant so much to me. Material things are not necessary to have a blessed life, because I had a blessed life and I didn't have the material things. And from the example of my parents, I was taught to be moral, and I was taught to be modest. I was taught to be a person of character, to be careful of what I said, and to be true to my word. I was taught to be kind and giving and hospitable. And one thing that I learned that I think every child needs to learn from their parents is to trust and obey them. This is why it's so important for us to be able, for our children to trust us and obey what we say. Because Jesus told his disciples, except you be converted and become as a little child, you shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So what do little children do? They trust their parents and they obey their parents. And that's what he wants us to do. He wants us to trust him and obey his word. It's that simple. That's what we need to do. It's easy to say, but it is so hard to do, because it's hard for us to trust somebody that we can't touch, taste, see, taste, or smell. And our flesh wants to rebel in doing what we want to do instead of somebody that we can't see. And we have the mistaken idea that if we can't see him, he can't see us. But that's not true. So in the next program, I'm going to leave the innocence of my childhood, where I had no cares and I lived under the protection of a godly mother and father. And I'll begin my journey with the Lord. So I hope you'll invite all your friends to share my journey with you on YouTube. Inspirations from Mima. Listen, like, comment, share, and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything.